now.
Okay. Now, welcome to the monthly conversations between the US and Germany. We've got David Rorix. I think most of people know them. And we have got me, and most of the people don't know me, but now they know me. And at the moment, it's not so funny because, as you all know, there are serious forest burnings all along the coast in the west coast in the US. And David, tell us a little bit about the situation. What is going
Yeah,
on now?
it's interesting that they're showing football on TV there in Germany on the main news. 8 minutes into the news, they're showing football. You just said, I don't know, maybe the news led off with the fires. I don't know, but it's definitely being covered by BBC anyway, and other Al Jazeera and others. But yeah, there's the biggest forest fires in the history of the state of Oregon and the state of California are all happening now, and also in Washington and Mexico and British Columbia. And there's 500,000 people in Oregon who are under evacuation orders of some kind. I think 80,000 who have actually evacuated. There's dozens dead and dozens more missing, thousands of homes destroyed. And it's really quite something. And the air quality is the worst in the world of any major city in the world right now in Portland. And
Okay.
it's also very bad in San Francisco and Seattle too.
Yeah, we have here in Stuttgart also the worst air quality of Germany, but I think
but that's because of industry, right? And Stuttgart's kind of in a bowl, is it? It's
yeah,
kind of
it's kind of with a ball, and if you are there in the summer and there's a lot of smog, and you couldn't all in the mountains all around. And you've got a lot of streets going through, and the big car builder like Mercedes-Benz, Porsche, and all those nice little guys.
Yeah.
And I'm living in
and there's
Ludwigsburg.
factories.
Yes, but I'm glad that I live in Ludwigsburg. It's north of Stuttgart, so Stuttgart is not a nice town because they really constructed it with silly things like the train stations. They've got they built an underground train stations, and there have been a lot of protests against this. It's not
big protests against this.
Yeah,
why was it such a big issue? It was like a massively expensive building project. Is that why people were just against a new big building project, or what was that all about?
No, it was there are a lot of investors that want to sell the areas above where was the former train station, and they want to build their houses and things. And so 20 years ago, they made a contract with our railway company, and so they want to rebuild a train station underground, but these new train stations is less effective than the old one. And so about 8-9 years ago, there was a really big movement with almost 100,000 people on the streets because they cut down the park areas and everything. And there are a lot of people in this movement that are really know what they're talking about because they work for the train for the railway company, or they are architects, they're people that are technical, very involved in the thematic. But now the government said, okay, it's the Green government. We've got a Green Party mayor here, but it's nothing else than the CDU people. He's almost like a conservative, but so now the protests are still there, but they are very little, 500 people and so. and all Stuttgart is a big
500
construction
people
site.
seems pretty good. I mean, but that's it. Just I just have to stop you for a moment there, because like 500 people coming to a protest in it may seem strange to say, but a lot of the protests that have been going on, like in Portland, over the
Yeah,
past 105 days or so, have not been much bigger than that. But it's so that's and yet it's making big national news all the time that we have a few hundred people protesting, which is still it's spontaneous protests. It's so much of it is not all that organized in advance. So then a few hundred people maybe is a lot, but when you say 500 people, I mean, you have a lot of protests in Germany that have that we don't hear at all about over here, that have hundreds of thousands of people at them too sometimes. Like, I mean, at TTIP, I mean, there was this
yeah,
in 2016, there were a quarter of a million people in Berlin, and
yeah, yeah. Yes, but
nobody heard about it outside of Germany, I think.
it depends on what you're protesting against. If you are protest against Nazis, they also have sometimes 500 people is also a lot. But then if you have got protests against Nazis, you have got political activists. And here at these protests, we have got a lot of normal people, that
Yeah,
never have
right.
been demonstrated. And so it was a really big movement. And um, uh, sometimes we thought we can stop this. But then the railway company, they told the people wrong facts. They say the train station will cost just 2 billion, and now they are at 12 billion. And so we could really make something better with the money. And 12 million people, they throw away for a silly project that just the investors, they are have their profit of it, nobody else,
Right,
and
and that's a huge. I mean, that kind of like a $2 billion project that becomes a $12 billion
yeah,
project. You're saying, I mean
yeah.
that happens a lot here, but that's not so common in Germany, right? That kind of corruption.
Yeah, if we have corruption, perhaps not so much like in other countries. I don't know.
Six times
Um,
over budget. I mean, that's
yeah.
that's that's like really significant. Yeah.
Yes, because the problem is the railway company. It was until 1990. It was a government organization,
Mm,
and now they privatized it, but it's half privatized. They get money from the state, and but they act like a normal company. They are at the stock exchange, but they give them a lot of money, but they don't invest it in the railway, in the railway station, and to improve it all. Most
right.
of the
They
people,
just
I
keep the
don't know,
profits.
they keep the profits, and the train is always late. It was
Yep.
a time here in Stuttgart when people lose their jobs because they was always coming too late to work because of the railway company. But
Yep.
now people accept it. If the politics do their things for a long time, the people say in the end, okay, it's all right. So
Because there's just a
yeah,
sense of fatalism, huh? A sense of resignation. Like this,
yeah,
things have got to be getting worse. Neoliberalism, the American way, is the way forward. It's just how it's going to
yeah,
be. But it's so sad that this. I find, at least it's been a long time now since I was in Europe, but I
yeah.
find it's a very much broad idea that people have all over Europe, that things have just got to get worse, and we're going to go more and more like the privatized American way. but it's so sad because the other model that I mean, if you're going to be a capitalist country, the
yeah,
model of reinvesting into industry, which used to be much more common, I think, in Germany, is it's a much better model than just taking all the money and giving it to investors, which is like the American model. It's having read about these kinds of things in the past, like economics and how different corporations work in different countries. I mean, I think in Germany, a typical corporation will reinvest something like 40% of the profits back into the operations of the company, whereas in the US, it's like reinvesting like 10%, something like that, and then taking the rest to give to the investors. So these corporations are often really fragile and not very well run, and
mm,
they don't have a lot of money in the bank because they're just giving it all away. And then you come to a disaster like what's been happening with the pandemic, and they need to be bailed out because they have no resources, because they've just been giving everything away to their investors. So it's just like these companies just exist to give money to their investors. They're not really there to produce anything useful. Whether they're
yes,
involved with trains or healthcare or making cars, the
yes.
American model.
I think the social system in Germany is better than in the US, but they try to, yeah, as you said, to do it in the neoliberalistic way.
Yeah.
But also in the healthcare, there are things that they want to privatize a lot more. But I think in the US it's really hard because here if you've got your healthcare insurance and if you have something they pay it. Also if
Mm-hmm.
you're not have you to work, and I think in the US most people don't have health insurance, or I don't know, or they
Or
have to pay
a
a
lot of
lot.
people don't. Yeah. Or they pay, those
Yeah.
who do have to pay too much, and tens of millions of people don't have it. Yeah. Although here in Oregon, most people have it
Uh,
because there's state healthcare here.
so it's better
But
in Oregon than
yeah, it depends on the state. But yeah, in
yeah.
Oregon, it's good. In Vermont, it's good. Some other states, but most of the country, it's terrible. Yeah.
And Oregon is more run by the Democrats or Republicans? Dem
Democrats, yeah. On
Democrats.
the West Coast, the Democrats are totally dominant. It's just like a one-party state.
Ah, okay, okay, okay.
So they're
And
very corrupt Democrats that own a lot of property. They're pro-business, pro-landlord Democrats, but they still are better than the pro-business, pro-landlord Republicans. At least they believe in healthcare.
oh, but that's a big advantage, I think. I think that's one
Yeah.
of the big
Oh yeah.
problems in the US, huh? The
Yeah.
healthcare system.
It's a big one. Although the cost of housing is also a massive problem, and that is a big problem in Oregon. Uh, but at least we have free healthcare if we're poor enough. You have to be poor enough
Okay.
to qualify. Otherwise, you have
Ah,
to
okay.
pay.
Okay.
So it's
And
not like as good as in Europe, but it's
perhaps get
still better than here. Yeah.
oh, yeah, also after with the eyes. And
Yeah, from
so
all the smoke. Yeah.
uh,
My eyes, my throat,
yeah,
it's the air quality it's really like actually on the iPhone,
yeah,
I guess I don't know who it is, but they have a weather, that it tells you what the weather is if you have an iPhone.
yeah,
I mean, I
yeah,
guess, and I don't know whose service they use or whatever,
yeah,
to give you this information. But yesterday or 2 days ago, it said on my wife's iPhone, it said the air quality was called smoke. Like, so usually the air quality index, it's usually like moderate, healthy, moderate, dangerous
yeah,
for people with like the pregnant women or something,
yeah,
and then they'll say mildly hazardous. There's all these different gradients before you get to
yeah. Okay.
hazardous, which is hazard, like very unhealthy, and then
Yeah.
hazardous, that's a really bad. And then it used to be, as far as I knew, there was nothing worse than hazardous. You never got to hazardous. But apparently there's another category beyond hazardous, and that's just called smoke. So
Just
so it's
smoke.
like when the
Oh,
air is no longer considered air, it's just called smoke. This is when the air is
so
no
so
longer just, this isn't hazardous air, it's just smoke.
so you shouldn't leave the building if you want to stay healthy. Or
No, we keep all the windows closed now. But the thing is
oh,
that even though we don't have air conditioning and
yeah.
it's September, which normally is quite hot, because of all the smoke out there, actually it's very cool. It's like during the eclipse. It's like it's like a really really foggy day, except it's not
Ah,
fog, it's smoke, but it keeps the sun very distant. So it's very cool out there. It's like 20 or 30 degrees cooler than it should be. You look on the weather forecast and it says it's hot out there, but you actually walk outside and then you could wear a jacket and be comfortable.
okay, okay.
Yeah, it's
So
so bizarre.
what was the main reason for the burning of the forest now?
Well, there's been I mean basically it's climate change. I mean there's a lot of different factors, like people building houses in the forests where they probably shouldn't be building. There's a lot of factors, but the main one is that in the summers it's always getting more and more dry, but in the winters it's often raining more. So it's not that it's just overall getting drier all the time, it's a mix of different extreme weather activities that are happening. So when in the winter, when we do get a lot of rain and snow and stuff, then actually the plants in the forests grow really well, and so then they die by the early summer. They die and they turn brown, and then you just have forests full of dead plants. The big
Okay.
trees, the big trees can deal with the weather changes, and they have reserves of water. They can get through a dry couple of years just fine. But the small plants that are just growing in the winter, like grass, it
Yeah.
dies when there's no more rain. It just all dies. So you have massive amounts of what they call fuel. And basically, so then you have a dry summer for months and months. It's just getting drier and drier. I mean, the entire West Coast is just full of dry brush that you just throw one cigarette butt in the woods and you've started a massive fire. So it could be accidents, it could be a spark from a car, it can be spark from a power line, it can be a lightning
Okay.
strike. They've had thousands of lightning strikes. Because then you have one of these, once you have a fire, a big, big fire, then it creates what they call a microclimate. We're all learning about these things now. And the
Yeah.
microclimate, it includes lightning strikes, which normally don't happen on the West Coast. We normally don't have much wet lightning. I grew up on the East Coast where lightning is very
Yeah.
common, and it's much more wet. We have hurricanes and it's very wet and the forests never burn. But on the West Coast, thing is very dry compared to the East Coast. But we don't have lightning out here. But yeah, when the microclimate gets created by the insane fire weather systems, then there's lightning strikes, and then that was happening in California, creating more and more fires. So yeah, and
Okay.
then you have these privatized energy companies. Like in
Mm.
California, they used to have a good public energy company that was really more careful about everything and reinvested, their money back into the infrastructure. But now you have this privatized energy company, which for decades has just been not maintaining infrastructure. And now, so a lot of the fires are started by poor infrastructure.
Mm. Yeah,
Yep.
it's the same all over the world. They privatized everything, and the quality is getting worse, and just few people benefit from it. So,
Yep.
also, do you have privatized the water in the US also?
Depending on the town, yeah, that's a big
Uh,
push to privatize everything, all the utilities. And then there's other people who are, fighting to maintain public utilities, and there still are a lot of public utilities, and there are a lot of public utilities where people in the towns, realize that the public utility is well run and they don't want to privatize it. But there's still like this general idea that when somebody comes and talks about privatizing things, oh,
Right.
that they must be talking about something good. It must be progress. It's going to bring investment. We're going to,
Yeah.
provide jobs. All this, it's just propaganda. It's just,
Yeah.
bullshit.
They always
Uh,
tell you heaven on earth, no? And
yeah,
then
always,
nothing.
always.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Yeah.
okay, what about the political situation now? What's about the protests in Portland, and also a lot of things happened until we talked for
Yeah.
4 weeks ago. So tell us a bit about the actual situation now.
I mean, since we talked last, like just like 5 weeks ago, there have been
Yeah.
so many different. Well, there have been a number of different, horrible, racist police killings caught on videotape. There have been other horrible racist police killings from before that have resurfaced for different reasons, and so there have been lots of new protests, and then there have been a lot of far right people being encouraged by the president and Fox News and other entities to come with automatic weapons to go to protests to supposedly protect property. And they're protected by the police, who generally all over the country are, getting along with them just fine. As those of
Mm,
us who have been involved with these things, we know that, and this is the same in much of the time in Europe, that as the police side with the far right. They feel an affinity with these people, and
mm,
they look at them as sort of deputized cops, like they're kind of on their side. And so there's been the two killings, multiple shootings and two killings in Kenosha, Wisconsin, of Black Lives Matter marchers who were killed by a far right guy, Kyle Rittenhouse, who's now being praised by the president. And then you had a couple weeks ago, or not, yeah, just less than 2 weeks ago, August 29th, there was a far right member of the far right who had come to invade Portland along with 600 pickup trucks full of flag waving, gun toting neo fascists, and they came to Portland, and one of them was shot because basically they all come in with guns. They've been killing people in other cities, so there are some of the people who are doing security for the Black Lives Matter protests that are
mhm,
happening and other protests. They're armed. There are people who are now carrying guns themselves. So, when everybody's going around with guns and the police are completely absent, then there's going to be people shooting each other. And that's what happened. One of these far right guys was killed. And then the person who apparently shot him, apparently in self defense, the police on September 4th, or no, September 2nd, was it? The police, multiple police agencies went to the apartment he was staying at in near Lacey, Washington, and executed him. None of the cops had body cams on, and they fired 40 shots, all in his direction. His name is Michael Raynol, and they fired 40 shots at him and killed him. Rather than arresting him, you know. And that's been some of the recent developments. The far right has been staging weekly protests in Portland, and the last time after the multiple killings, when the far right had their big protest in the suburbs of Portland, they went to the state capitol and they did not come back to Portland in any big numbers. So it seems like they may be giving Portland a break after the multiple killings, which is intelligent on their part. But who knows what the future holds? It's all becoming much more violent, and it's much less of a you cannot be certain at all that if you go to a protest that you won't be attacked by a far right person with a gun or a motor vehicle. Although at the protests in Portland, there's a lot of good, well organized security and well organized protesters, people organize into different groups, different, in the typical sort of anarchist organizing methodology. Basically, there's different affinity groups and people who organize within those groups to do different things, like provide food and medical care and different services that people need. And one of those things is security, and another is escorting the march when it's in the streets, to make sure that the traffic gets uh, sent somewhere else, so that nobody has accidents. And to also, if anybody is going to drive a vehicle into the protests, at least in Portland, they're going to be going through a bunch of basically very large people with very large motorcycles, because that's the crowd who's doing the security. I'm not sure what the group is called, but basically the folks doing the escorting are generally doing it with very large motorcycles. So that's the setup in Portland anyway.
But it sounds like the eve of a civil war there. That's I think
Yeah,
it's the problem of that everybody could get a gun in the US, and so oh,
yeah,
it's really. And I think yeah, the president also supported them and encouraged them to do this, and he encouraged them also to break the law, because he
yeah,
said they could do twice. And I think
yeah, that too.
the balance of power is breaking down between the executive and the legislative. If he's
Yeah,
it's not his aim to say that. And I think in Germany, I hope so, they would put him to court because he broke the law. The president, I think he broke the law, or I'm wrong.
he's broken the law multiple times. He's constantly lying and constantly breaking the law, and constantly encouraging people to break the law in really, really dangerous ways, encouraging vigilantism. It's really amazing what's going on. I mean, even having lived through two Bush administrations,
Yeah.
I mean, it's really it's hard to imagine. But Trump makes both of the Bush presidents look like uh, I don't know, like nice, kind ministers, or like somebody's sweet grandma or something. I mean, it's just really. I mean, it's hard to. I mean, they're all the people like both Bushes and Reagan, and also actually Bill Clinton and many others have do this sort of dog whistle racist stuff. This kind of it's clearly they're trying to appeal to the white racists, but they do it in a somewhat sort of. Uh, it's symbol. They use symbolism rather than communicating directly. They'll talk about this guy who got let out of prison and then he killed somebody, and so that's the symbolism. So they're saying we're for law and order, and the person they're talking about who got out of prison and killed somebody was, of course, black, right? So clearly the symbolism is the message is there. The dog whistle racism, is there. They're talking about black people, but like the way Trump does it, it's just on such another level of completely blatant. It's there is no effort at all to try to calm things down. I mean, even when when there were big uh, what they called riots during the first Bush administration, and after the terrorist attacks in New York, and under the second Bush administration, they made efforts to calm things down. I mean, you know, as horrible, and they were both mass murderers, of course, but they killed so many Iraqis and so many other people, and I'm not trying to say anything good about them, but just in relation to Trump, it's just, I mean, after 9/11, 19 years ago today, George W. Bush was on TV and on the radio talking about how Islam is a religion of peace, and
Mm.
don't blame Muslims for what just happened. And that was, and I was relieved at the time, because I thought, oh my goodness, after this, there could be pogroms against Muslims now. If we had a Trump in power in 2001, we could have had pogroms, you know.
Yeah.
But luckily we had George W. Bush, and he was a reasonable enough person that whoever it was on his team who told him we could have pogroms, you need to say something now, and he said something, and it was like the right thing to say. It's which is amazing.
I think it's because Trump he's a businessman and he thinks the state is like a business and he's the one who rules and everything has to do what he says. And I think he's really mentally ill because I think he's not acting like. Also, if someone is acting not in my political opinion, but he's acting like someone who don't know what he's doing is crazy, I think. Or but you couldn't think what he's doing next, and such one could crush the whole world if he pushes the button. Huh?
Well,
It's,
yeah, I mean, who knows what he's going to do with the button, but certainly I think, I mean, yeah, he seems crazy and emotionally unstable, but at the same time, I think he seems to have some kind of a method to his madness, and it seems like he's following a basic kind of fascist playbook in terms of, using divide and conquer politics to sort of appeal to his base of racists and to use and create events on the ground by like sending federal troops into cities like Portland, to create conflict that he can then capitalize on and use to promote his law and order platform. I mean, he's actively trying to create chaos in this country, and he's succeeding. And and then he can appeal to his base and talk about law and order and talk about how cities like Portland are burning down, which now they are maybe about to do. But and the far right is talking about how Antifa is burning down all the forests, and actually now in the past few days, all the police agencies of from the FBI to the local cops up and down the West Coast, they're all tweeting about how Antifa are not setting these fires, because and they're no friends of Antifa. The police, they don't like Antifa at all. In fact, they really don't like. They really hate Antifa, but they also recognize this is like pogrom type of atmosphere, and that the right is trying to foment, and that saying that these massive terrible fires are actually caused by anybody for any political reason. They're not. These are not political fires. These climate change, yeah, that's political, but nobody's going around burning down the country. That's not happening. This is not a police station. If it were a police station burning, okay, yeah, that might be the black bloc. But no, when the forests are burning, that's not that's not the anarchists.
Yes, but he Trump he also said we are his enemy. Yeah, he always talks about the anarchist. But I think he
Yeah,
don't know what
right. What's he
anarchism is.
talking about? No, he has
He's
no idea.
and I hope. But he tries to set up a dictatorship so that he wants that the voting.
Yeah,
It
he's
will
really
count,
talking about
you know.
12
Oh,
more years. Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah,
so
I mean, maybe making the election impossible. It's really new. This is really new territory. I mean, I don't think this is really, among so many other things, unprecedented. I mean,
do you think he has a chance to do that? Or
I think he does. Yeah, I think he really does, because I think because if there were a popular opponent in the election, if the Democrats had a popular person running like Bernie Sanders, for example, then I think the whole situation could be completely different, because that could really mobilize people in the streets, and massive numbers of people mobilized in the streets can change everything anywhere. but nobody's going to mobilize in support of Joe Biden,
Yeah.
because he doesn't have that capacity to mobilize people. He's not even trying to. He doesn't even believe in the idea of mobilizing people or street protest or anything like that. He is a totally establishment banker. He's from the state that is completely controlled by the banks. He is all about Goldman Sachs and just pretending to be something else. I mean, it's the worst possible situation politically, and he's not going to inspire people to support him. And Trump is all about inspiring his base. So I think I'm not even sure if Trump might not win the election outright. But the only but if he doesn't win, then I think he could still potentially steal the election, especially if he loses by only a little bit. But
Okay.
I don't know if he loses by a landslide, then I think it would be very hard for him to mobilize the support he would need to go against democratic practices and maintain power. But if it's a very close race, then I think he could make the case that about corruption or vote fraud or whatever, and he could manage to hold on to power. It's hard to say because I mean they talk about the system of checks and balances, but really the president has a huge amount of power in terms of just the power that he's been given by the Congress, especially since 2001. So if he wants
I
to
mean,
declare a national emergency, he can.
yeah, that's a problem. So the balance of power, that's one of the good things in democracy that was established in the French Revolution. I think if that is going down and the company rules and the legislative has no power, then it's a sad future. And I think, but I hope there is a lot of protests also in the Republican Party against him, that they say don't vote for our party, vote for the Democrats. So is there a union that interacts with each other, but or is everything doing his own thing?
Well, there are different organizations of people who are Republicans who are backing Biden and opposing Trump for sure. That's becoming a thing. But I would say that these Republicans who are doing that are the Republicans that the people who voted for Trump rejected 4 years ago. These are the Republicans who were not doing well in the Republican presidential primaries, who were trying to run against Trump. It's the same crowd of Republicans. These kinds of guys, like they're more generally more like the establishment, the Republican establishment. They believe in American imperialism, and they're disturbed by Trump pulling troops out of Germany, that kind of thing. They're not this. They're not. Yeah. So, and they don't have much popularity. I think basically they don't have much support. These Republicans, they were rejected by the people who voted for Trump. Trump is like, I mean, it reminds me of like, I don't know, like the old, like General Heidelberg or something. It's like these old irrelevant people that have been rejected by the people that support the new, really exciting guy, who in this case is Trump, even though he's not new or, but he's very exciting to his base, in the ways that charismatic leaders can be.
And I think now he shows his real face, because now he's more than in the beginning of this legislation, um, often supports the far right.
Yeah.
Because he said, okay, that are always the left ones, and of course the anarchists. We are always the bad guys. And in the beginning, he tries a little bit to say he's the president for everyone, and now he thinks that that is the far right. That is his base, huh? The space of people.
I
The
mean, he
that
also tries to appeal to black Republicans, and I mean, he's it's not only the far right, but he's very regularly making pro far right comments and tweets and sharing things to his tens of millions of or what hundreds of millions of Twitter followers. He's sharing tweets from far right conspiracy theorists who are blaming Antifa for starting the fires, and I mean, he retweets stuff from QAnon. I mean, QAnon, this conspiracy idea that is growing, is being actively promoted by Trump and many others in the Republican establishment, and yeah, it's all, of course, it's really bizarre conspiracy theories, but at the same time, you can see why a lot of people believe it, because there's some seeds of truth in most of these, basically bizarre conspiracy theories. Like the one about that's so popular in QAnon about Hillary Clinton running a child sex trafficking ring out of a pizza place in Washington, D.C. It sounds so bizarre until you realize that Jeffrey Epstein, on his private island with his child victims, regularly had Bill Clinton and Donald Trump as guests. So, this may have nothing to do with Hillary Clinton, and it may have nothing to do with her running a child sex ring or any of that stuff, but it still is a fact that Epstein was friends with both Trump and Bill Clinton, and he killed himself in prison. And, there's a lot of things we'll never know, probably.
Yes, the conspiracy people, they are also here a big problem. I think you've seen it on the news.
Yeah, what's
In
going on with that there, with the mask protests and stuff?
Yes, we've got a lot of conspiracy theories about Corona, about COVID. They say it's because Bill, not Bill Clinton. What's the chief of Microsoft?
Oh, Bill Gates.
Bill Gates, Bill Clinton, Bill Gates, that he wants to sell his inf. I don't know the word. If you want to prevent a disease,
Like a vaccine.
yeah,
Yeah.
genau. And
Yeah.
they say it's the fault of Bill Clinton, and they think Corona is just
Yeah. That Bill Gates started the corona so he could cure it with a vaccine and make lots of money. Is that the idea?
there. And the problem is that the far right in Germany, they always try, because they're very clever. They are better organized than the left ones, and they just want to get the people into their way of thinking, mostly with the music, skinhead music or punk music, and so. And now they want to get these Corona people that say it's the fault of Mrs. Merkel, and that are against our basic rights to wear a mask. And also now I'm at a school, and also some parents say our child don't have to wear a mask because it's against their individual rights, and so silly people. And the problem is that really these people, they go to the Reichstag with the old flags of the former kingdom before Hitler, and
Mhm.
all the people that carrying these flags, they are not
Of the Republic, of the Weimar Republic flags,
yeah,
or
Weimar Republic. They
what are they trying to say with the Weimar flags? What does that symbolize?
they are Nazis, but these flags they stand for the Weimar Republic. They stand for the old emperor. But
Okay,
it's not forbidden to show these signs. If you
right. You
uh,
can't have a swastika. That's
yeah,
illegal.
swastika, but you know, all the people that wear these flags, they are all Nazis. And
Right.
now there are a lot of people of these conspiracy thinking that are perhaps not real Nazis, but they are really silly in the head because they think, oh, what they say, it's okay, and they want to. They are for us. They do something for us, and so they're really undermining this whole movement. But okay, the whole movement is silly, but if really 40,000 people go and burn into the streets, and I don't know what's going on with their minds. If they in normal
Forty
times, when
thousand people. These marches. You're
yeah,
saying there have been 40,000 people?
yeah, 40,000
Wow.
people, and that are really there's also some left people, but dogmatic left people that have no brain. It also
I mean,
exists,
in the
and
foreign press, when they cover these protests in Germany, they often talk about how it's both right and left people protesting the mask laws. But can you kind of explore that and clarify that a little? Like what left elements are they talking about?
Um, okay, I think left. It's a big thing. Left. It goes from the there are no left ones of the parties like Die Linke. I think they are not ones, but
Not
these
Die Linke is not protesting against masks. I'm sure
no,
when
no,
we're talking about other far left or some kind of what they might. I
no.
mean, which left though? Because I mean, the left isn't protesting masks here at all.
No, it's all the not organized left. It's not the anarchist. It's the most spiritual left. Some crazy hippies or I don't know.
More
Hippies
like
are not.
esoteric, more
Nah,
like the esoteric new age kind of crowd. Like,
I don't say that these people are all bad, but I think it's more normal people. They're not normal, but not political people. But if they are political, they are really dogmatic lefts, and not so much organized. And then you have also okay the far right in all its variety. And I
mhm.
think that, but I don't know exactly because I don't go to these demonstrations.
Yeah, right. I know, but you're probably keeping more track of it.
What's your aim? Are you an anarchist? No, okay, then it's
Yeah,
okay.
right, right.
But
No, but even just like with local news, I find like when even if I'm not at every event that's going on, I'm following local news. But then when people hear about local events here, it's when there's some really big thing going on, and I think it's the same in anywhere. You know, if you're following local events, it all makes more sense. But then when you're looking at the news about events in Germany from out here, you know, we only hear about certain things that go on. You know, at least in terms of like international headlines, and then that makes it a lot harder to make sense of the whole sort of trajectory of what's going on. And
but that
yeah.
is the reason why we talk.
Yes,
So
exactly.
that's the reason why we
We'll
talk
solve
about.
that whole problem.
We are there in the country, and we could talk what's going on. And I think that's a really good thing here. And I'm really glad that we can do it once a month. And I want to say something, but what I want to say, I've
That
forgotten. I
thought,
think,
it's
no,
hiding
no,
in the corner of the room.
I think the problem is, yeah, these people are saying, we are with our individual rights, and we have to wear the mask, and they always say, oh, we're little poor people, and they are saying, hey, we are in Germany, we could be glad, and the pandemic is not so bad. And I say, I know someone from the US, and then it's much more dangerous, and it's much worse. And the people, they are too well off here. They don't know what's really going on, and so they are going to these demonstrations. And if a really big issue is like the political system in the whole, there is nobody. But now they are going for really things I don't understand. But I hope it will change. Perhaps
Yeah. But
the
it
good will.
seems it's worrying though because the 40,000 people is a lot of people, and these social issue, it seems like they like to, the far right loves to manipulate people with these kinds of social issues that are not really like economic, like whether you wear a mask, whether whether trans people are allowed to use the bathroom, whether you have access to abortion, these kinds of sort of social issues that they can make into wedge issues to build their base. It's scary.
The far right, they don't care about the issue. They say everywhere we could get supporters, we do it. Also in the they copied the autonomous movement of the left. Also, they have the black clothing, and so
Yeah.
some right you couldn't differentiate from the left ones. So I say always the right are like the Japanese. They copy everything. So but the problem is the leaders of the right people. They unfortunately come from my hometown, from Hamburg, and they in after the wall was breaking down, they go to east of Germany and infiltrate all these people there and build their structures. And you have got things like Nationalbefreiungszone. That means um, areas where there's the right of the right, some like Brandenburg or Saxon or areas like this, or Mecklenburg-Vorpommern. And but I think it's not so bad like these rights that you have in the US, because most of them don't have guns, some of them so, but it's not so easy to get a gun here. But it's also a very, very big problem. And for decades, the government said, oh, just some individuals. And so some
Hmm.
individuals that are a little bit silly, but unfortunately, they are not silly. They have got really, really good organized. And that's the problem, I think.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
then was nice talking to you. And
It's lovely talking to you.
yeah, was great. And we see us next month, I think. When you listen to
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Excellent. Yeah.
really
Good.
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 Okay.
Yeah. Ciao till then.
Okay. Then you sent me the file then.
I'll send you a file.
Okay. Thank you. Bye. Have a
Thank
good time
you.
and
Bye,
take care
Frank.
of you. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. Hopefully the city doesn't burn down till then.